Here's another demonstration of another tool called Dephase. It's still a MIDI transformation tool. I'll use this sequence of 8 notes to demonstrate it. All these notes have different pitches, different velocities, different durations. The space between all the note starts is mostly the same, except for this space here between there and there, what I like to call the gap, which is twice as big. They might also have other differences, such as probabilities, deviation, release velocities, mute status is when you do this. But I'll only do this demonstration using the first 4 of them. With this tool, you select a sequence. By default, the last note of the sequence will not be included. I'll explain later why. It will just act as a marker, as an ending marker for the sequence. I can click Adapt. If I do this, the number of notes will be counted. There are 7 notes, excluding the last one. And this number will be copied to all these boxes. From there, I can extend the number of notes, and it will just repeat the pattern as this. But then from there, I can say, for instance, I want the velocity to loop not on 7, but on 6 or 5. And see how the pattern for velocities changes, but not the notes themselves. If I exceed the original number of notes, it will just restart and then loop back. I could say I want pitches to be 12, so it will do the first 7 notes, then restart and stop at 12 and restart. I can do the same for the space between notes, and I can do the same for the length of the notes, the durations. So there is some kind of audible logic, but still, depending on those values and their I don't know what's the word in English, but depending on those values, the time for them to resynchronize could be very long, and the sequence can be very long. I think it's only, you can only extend it to 200 notes or something, but it can be very long without repeating. Now there is a way to directly unsynchronize those values, and the way is to set a value here other than 0. I can press 1. It will not do anything from now, but the next time I click Adapt, it will, instead of setting the same value for all those boxes, it will increase by 1 or -1 or anything else the value of these boxes. The order to which it does this is very arbitrary. It starts with pitch, then velocity, etc. But you can always revise them later. It's just a way to quickly test unsynchronized version of the sequence. That's all for the basic functions. The additional options here, I would recommend leaving those boxes unchecked, but there are some reasons you might want to check them, why you might want to check them. I'll probably not go into details to whether I made certain choices. There are reasons, trust me. But I'll explain what they're about. You can always see more details here in the info view. The first box is whether we include that last note in the sequence or not. If we include it, then the algorithm will have to guess what is the space between this note and the next note, since there is no next note. So it will do some kind of complex, it will make a guess. The part of the algorithm for this is quite long and I will not explain it in detail, but in this case it would guess that so the note is included here. I can uncheck it, check it, and check it. Yeah, and the guess was this duration here, which is a good guess, but it's less predictable than when you uncheck it. The next box is whether we use absolute durations or not. If we use absolute durations when the box is checked, then the duration of all the notes will simply repeat. If we uncheck the box, then instead of making a list of duration, it will make a list of ratios, which means, for instance, this would be 100%. This note is 100%, is taking 100% of the space between its own start and the next start, the next note start. This would be 50%. And then instead of just repeating the duration, it will adapt to each gap in the sequence. I prefer to leave it that way because it creates more, it makes more sense. For instance, if notes are all supposed to follow each other, then they actually follow each other. They wouldn't overlap if there was no overlapping in the original sequence. But you might want to check it if you're using unquantized music, for instance, because using ratios might end up with very long notes or very short notes. It might not make sense. And the third box is used when we have polyphony. So polyphony, I will make a chord and I will allow several notes to play at once. Polyphony is allowed. I can extend this sequence and it will reproduce polyphony. The sequence that defines when to repeat polyphony is the gap sequence, because notes are registered from lower to upper, and two simultaneous notes have a gap of 0. But since the pitches are not necessarily synchronized to gaps, the pitches for each chord can vary. And notice how all the notes in one chord might have different durations, because the duration sequence is still going on for each note. And that might be something that you don't want. So in this case, you check that box and you have solid duration for chords. And when registering the duration of a chord in the sequence, it will just average the duration of every note that is part of it. There might be more details to refine about this logic, but it's kind of working. And I guess that's all. One other thing that I would like to add very soon, hopefully, would be to separate the pitch class, which means what the note is, like B flat, and the octave. I would like to let the user define a starting point for each octave and have different sequence for the octave, so that if you have one bass note or one very high-pitched note that is triggered every now and then, you would keep that ratio of high and low notes, but still allow the pitch to change between, like, this would be like F and E flat or whatever. So I'll leave you there, and we can maybe just I'll just program a random sequence and we can hear the sequence, and that's all. Bye.